Welcome to another video from yours truly, Mark. Now, since it's Halloween, I'm gonna do something special. I'm gonna do a top 10 list. A top 10 list of what? Well, probably my favorite part of movies and video games when it comes to characters are the villains. Now, a lot of people have done top 10 lists of any kind of villains. Nostalgic villains, Disney villains, but this top 10 list will be on villains from one of the best genres in video games, 3D platformers. Because there are a lot of villains in 3D platformers that are either threatening, comedic, or very memorable. Now the rules are, the villain must be from a 3D platformer game, 2, only one villain per franchise, and 3, the most important of all, do not bitch if you don't agree with me. I see a lot of top 10s getting flamed by some random nitwit who doesn't have the will to take an opinion. If your favorite villain is either not on this list, higher, nor number 1, then don't complain and deal with it. This is not factual information, just based all on my opinion. Oh, by the way, don't expect Bowser from Mario or Dr. Eggman from Sonic to appear on this list, because these villains are already popular and it would be very obvious why they would be on the list. So, with that said, let's begin the top 10 3D platformer villains. Number 10. Gruntilda from Banjo-Kazooie. The reason why this villain is at the bottom of the list is because Gruntilda isn't threatening nor that memorable, but she's bumbling, crazy, and a total hag. This villain is pretty much based off the evil Queen Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. She finds out that the little sister of the main character of the game is most prettiest. She kidnaps her and plans to turn her into a monster and steal her looks. Now that's just cruel. As for the boss battle, well, it's not that spectacular, but Gruntilda does take a shitload of beating and ends up having the most painful death in video game history. Just take a look at this. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sucks to be her, I guess. Anyway, if you happen to get game over in the game, there's one scene where Gruntilda finally manages to succeed and turn into a... Whoa! While Gruntilda isn't the greatest villain in the 3D platformer games, she's still a perfect example of a pretty girl's nightmare. Number 9. Jacqueline Natla from Tomb Raider. Okay, I know what you're all thinking. Does Tomb Raider count as a 3D platformer? Well, you can do platforming in it. So yeah, it does count as a 3D platformer. So anyway, Natla is one of those villains who starts off as an ally to the protagonist at first, and later on in the game betrays the protagonist and becomes the villain. Natla's appearance at the beginning shows her as a businesswoman, but later on in the game it is revealed that she was the third ruler of Atlantis before being banished for betrayal.
Mindless? Look at you! Neither of you have one squirt of inventive juice in your heads. Wasters.
Whoa! Talk about tough. This villain is sly, greedy, and always does anything to keep her plans from failing. What are her plans? Well, it has something to do with using the Scion to create an army of mutants. So that explains those creatures from... Though I still have to put Natla low on the list, cause she doesn't appear much in the game. But hey, at least she's better than all the other villains in the Tomb Raider franchise. Number 8. Franklin D. Mann from Whiplash. This is a very underrated villain of a very underrated 3D platformer, and Franklin D. Mann is the Cruella de Vil of 3D platformers because of his disgust for animals.
Animals are stupid. They don't use money, they don't have thumbs, they have no people skills, they're lazy.
Franklin has probably the funniest dialogue from a villain.
Peanut butter! Did you know cow farts could fuel this entire country for decades? Whatever's on
Including
that data cube,
this in
okay?
particular
'Cause I
line.
know it can't be good. Is it porn?
This is a kid's game, am I right? As for the boss battle with him, I have to say it was pretty annoying at first, but then later on it got wackier and more funnier. And when he's defeated, he ends up firing himself.
Did you know that weasels and rabbits are natural enemies in the wild? I'm fired.
While Franklin is funny, he can also be a complete jackass. Even when he's being threatened to take his company down, he still refuses.
Set the animals free, Franklin. Set the animals free before it's too late.
Nope, can't do it. Animal research is too important to science.
Even though Franklin is not an original villain, he's still one of the most funniest villains from a 3D platformer. Number 7. Rez from the Gex series. I have to say, this is one of the creepiest villains from a 3D platformer because of that voice of his.
Well, it's true. I didn't always look like this. I fell into a scrap heap.
Rez invades the media dimension again, forcing Gex to go back in and stop him. The boss battle with him near the end is probably one of the most action-packed boss fights from a 3D platformer. In the end, Rez claims to be Gex's father, but Gex doesn't seem to believe in this.
Okay then, Dad. How about we forget all this and go and play footy in the garden?
Rez later appears in the third game where he kidnaps Agent Extra. Rawr. Though, like Natla, he doesn't appear that much in the games, but I will say his mini boss fight with Gex that parodies Godzilla was hilarious. Number 6. Dr. Neo Cortex from the Crash Bandicoot trilogy. This is one of my favourite villains in a 3D platformer. The reason for that is because Cortex can be both threatening and funny at the same time. I really like his voice because it sounds dark and intimidating. Speaking of which, in the first Crash game, his voice sounds more of a normal scientist voice.
This Bandicoot will be my general, and he will lead my Cortex commandos to world domination. This time I shall reign triumphant!
And in the sequels, his voice changes to more deeper and darker.
Crystals. Of course.
On top of that, his boss fights in the trilogy were quite memorable. His battle in the first game was decent, his battle in the second game was annoying, but the best was his battle in the third game because it was more memorable and the most wackiest. But you want to know what's crazy about this villain? He has created some of the most insane mutants ever! From a jumping fucked up kangaroo to a half dingo, half crocodile mutant with a flamethrower. Holy shit, skateboard! No wonder he has a big head. Brain of his is filled with so much crazy creativity! And for that, he earns the number 6 spot.